Teeth and Claw by Beryl Coops.
The manor stood like a ghost in the woodlands, half forgotten by the world, but never by her. Caroline's home, if such a word could still apply, sat just 5 miles from the spires of Oxford, though it might as well have been 5 centuries. The night cast it in its truest light. Crumbling stone steps bathed in moonlight, ivy clawing down its walls like a slow-motion burial. Time had tried to reclaim it, and perhaps it was winning. Within its cold, cavernous hallways, she moved like breath over old glass, a memory kept just barely alive. To look at her, one might assume she was in her 20s, pale skin, untouched by age, lips the color of old wine, eyes that carried the weight of storms long since past. But Caroline was not young. She had outlived kings and commoners, fire and plague, the slow ache of solitude, and the sharper pain of love lost. Tonight, the taste of blood still lingered on her tongue. It hadn't been pleasure, it never was, but necessity, her food of life. The man behind the old alehouse hadn't stirred when she found him. His skin was translucent with hunger, his breathing already fading before she ever touched him. She had whispered an apology. She always did, as her fangs met his throat. It was mercy. It had to be. The mist curled low around her boots as she made her way home, the air thick with damp earth, pine sap, and moss. It had been an uneventful hunt. She had passed through the streets unseen, through the veil of midnight. But then something. A scent, sharp and sudden, cut through the fog like a blade. Blood, yes, but not the blood of prey. No, this was older, wilder, wrong. She stopped mid-step, head tilting as her senses strained. Beneath the blood, something darker threaded the air, metallic, primal, bitter with fury and pain. Her feet moved before her mind caught up, driven by instinct and something else she couldn't name. She pushed through bramble and root, the forest tightening around her like a fist, until at last she stepped into a clearing, bathed in fractured moonlight. There, slumped at the foot of a moss-covered stone, was a body. At first glance, it could have been a man. But the scent was unmistakable. Not human. The creature was massive even in collapse, his dark, matted fur streaked with blood. One leg twisted unnaturally beneath him, and claw marks raked his flank, deep and deliberate. Not the work of a human hand. One of his own, she thought grimly. Her breath stilled in her chest. A wolf, she murmured. A werewolf. Her mouth went dry. He was her enemy, her predator if the old stories were true. She had avoided them for centuries, out of instinct and survival, and had never regretted doing so. Their kind had hunted hers before, just as hers had done the same. She had seen what they could do. She should leave. Right now. Turn, vanish, pretend she had seen nothing. Let the soil claim him, like it did all broken things. But still, she stood there. What was it? Pity? Curiosity? The echo of something human? Her conscience, long since dulled, now jabbed at her like a thorn. He was broken, dying. And yet there was something regal even in his collapse, a power not yet extinguished. She should not be here. Damn it, she hissed, already stepping forward. His eyes fluttered open, just barely, but when they met hers, golden and glazed with pain, it froze her in place. There was rage in them, yes, but something else too, confusion. Recognition? Her heart, what was left of it, tightened. I should leave you here, she whispered, crouching beside him. She reached out before she knew what she was doing, her fingers brushing against his jaw. His skin was hot, fevered, alive. What was she doing? Helping him? Healing him? Was she mad? This was dangerous. He was dangerous. If he survived, what then? Would he tear her throat out as thanks? But she didn't pull away. Instead, she shrugged off her cloak, wrapped it around his enormous frame, and began to drag him, step by agonizing step, toward the manor house. Her mind raged against her. This is a mistake. He could kill you. You should have let the forest have him. This is not mercy. This is madness. But still, she didn't stop. By the time she reached the wrought iron gates, her arms trembled, her strength waning. The gate screamed in protest as she pushed it open. Behind her, the trees stood in judgmental silence. At the manor threshold, she paused, every instinct telling her to leave him outside. Just walk away. Let nature finish what it started. He is your enemy. But something rooted her to the spot. When she finally opened the door, it was not with conviction, but resignation. She laid him gently on the old chaise in the drawing room, its faded velvet eaten by time, its legs bowed with age. The candlelight flickered uncertainly across the walls as she struck a match, and that was when she saw it, his shift. The bones snapped and slid beneath skin, the fur retreating, until what remained was a man, bloody and broken. He was beautiful. She hated that he was beautiful. She sank into the nearest chair, her hands shaking. "What have I done?" she whispered into the gloom. "What have I done indeed? He's my enemy. He's dangerous. This is madness. I must be mad." But she already knew the answer. Madness, yes. But perhaps loneliness too. He awoke to silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that pressed down on the chest like a weight, thick, suffocating, as if the very walls were holding their breath. He lay still, listening. The scent of old wood and wax filled the air, but something else curled beneath it. Metallic, faint, familiar. Blood, not his, not anymore. This was sharper, older. It came from her. Marcus groaned and dragged a hand over his face. Pain bloomed immediately in his ribs, deep and searing. He was naked beneath a fur blanket, bare by the feel of it, and his wounds had been tended with care far more precise than he'd expect from an enemy. The bandages were clean, the cuts were bound, and yet none of that mattered. He was weak, and she was still here. Why had she saved him? Why not finish it? One flick of her wrist and it could have ended. No mess, no risk. Yet here he lay, in the lair of a vampire, unsure if he was guest, prisoner, or meat being fattened for slaughter. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, approaching. His heart kicked against his ribs. Instinct surged. Fight, flee, but his limbs were useless weights. She appeared in the doorway like something from a fevered dream. Her long dark hair flowed freely over her shoulders. Her cheekbones high and elegant, her body still and poised like a blade waiting to strike. But it was the eyes that locked him, storm dark and unrateable, sharp enough to gut a man without touching him. A part of him wanted to snarl, to shift, to bare his teeth, but he couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. "You're awake," she said curtly. He sat up far too fast and swore under his breath, biting back a grunt as pain lanced through him. Stupid, he thought. She didn't move, didn't help, just watched.
"You should have let me die,"
he rasped, his voice rough, cracked with distrust. "You are in my home," she replied dryly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, though the word home sounded strange on her lips, like it hadn't been spoken aloud in years. He narrowed his eyes.
"What are you?"
She tilted her head slightly, like a crow considering roadkill. "I think you already know the answer to that question." He did. He could smell it now. That sickly sweet, cold tang in the air. Not decay, worse. That peculiar sharpness that clung to her like perfume, old blood, and something that didn't die properly. A vampire, his lip curled with disgust, fear laced with fury.
"You should have let me die."
He spat.
"Why didn't you then?"
"Believe me," she said, tone flat, "I considered it, long and hard." They stared at one another, an unnatural stillness settling between them. Old stories echoed in both their bones. Kill on sight, trust nothing, never turn your back. The silence was not empty. It was crowded, packed with memory and instinct, hate and hesitation. She didn't know if he'd lunge at her the moment he could stand. He didn't know if she planned to drain him when he wasn't looking. Every second felt like a test of nerves. Then she turned her back, deliberately, and walked toward the hearth, kneeling to stir the embers with a metal poker. It made a sharp sound, like a blade being drawn. Marcus flinched before he could stop himself.
"Why?"
he asked again.
"Why did you save me? I don't understand. You're kind and mine. It's war. Always has been."
"I don't know, to be honest," she said without looking at him. "Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was tired of being the only monster in this house." That word, monster, hung between them, far too honest to be a jest. He gave a bark of laughter that ended in a wince.
"You expect me to believe you're the merciful kind? That's rich."
"No," she replied, still poker-faced. "I don't expect anything of you. I told you, I'm not merciful, but I am curious. And maybe—" She hesitated, just for a beat. Maybe it was loneliness. That gave him pause. He studied her more closely now, the way she didn't quite meet his eyes, the subtle tension in her jaw, like she was waiting for a blow that hadn't come. Could she be afraid of him? Even in his ruined state? Maybe. He could smell it now, hidden beneath the cool exterior. Not terror, but wariness. She feared what he might be, just as he feared what she already was. He went quiet, unsure of what to say. And when he looked again, he found her watching him. Not with malice, not even with pity, but with the cold calculation of a creature that had spent too long surviving in a world that offered no warmth. He turned his face away and closed his eyes, not because he trusted her, but because he didn't know what she would do if he didn't. Over the following days, they circled each other like predators sharing the same den, neither willing to strike, neither able to fully trust. Every glance was a calculation, every movement a measured risk. Caroline brought him food, broth, water, bandages. Never questions, never warmth. Just that watching stillness as if she were waiting for his teeth to flash. Which, to be fair, he might have done, if he had the strength. He, too, kept his distance, studying her like a snake studies fire. She was cold, unreadable, terrifying in her silence. Sometimes he caught her standing in the doorway, her expression impossible to decipher. He didn't know if she was gauging his health or his weakness. He grew stronger, and he tried to leave. Twice. The first time, he barely made it halfway down the hall before the pain brought him to his knees. The second time, he actually reached the door. But she was faster. He hadn't even heard her until her hand was on his shoulder, pressing him to the wall like a shadow falling. Her strength was effortless, terrifying. He could feel it in the coiled muscles beneath her pale skin, in the way she leaned in close, her voice a breath against his ear. "You're not ready," she whispered. "I'll let you know when it's time for you to leave."
I'm not your prisoner.
He growled. "No," she said, almost gently. "You're my guest, at least for now." He said nothing, no gratitude, no defiance, just turned and limped back to his room, his cage. That night she brought him stew, simple, warm, nothing special, but good. He nodded in the barest gesture of thanks. She didn't smile, but something behind her eyes shifted. Not kindness, more like permission to exist. The days grew longer, the silences deeper, and then the arguments began.
You think you're better than me?
He snapped, pacing the threadbare carpet in the drawing room like a wolf in a trap. "I know I'm older," she said coolly. "That usually comes with perspective and wisdom."
Perspective, really? You feed on the weak and dying.
"And you don't?" she countered, stepping toward him. "You hunt travelers in the dark. You rip them to pieces under the cover of the trees." He bared his teeth.
I don't feed on them. Not like you. Not like you do.
She stepped closer still, her gaze steady, unnerving. "Does that make you noble? Or just wasteful?" That silenced him. Not because she was right, but because she'd gotten too close. Close enough to strike. Close enough to kiss. He wasn't sure which terrified him more. She didn't push further. She didn't have to. That night, he found her reading by candlelight in the old red leather armchair. A book rested open on her lap, firelight dancing on her pale skin. There was a curve to her neck, a quiet stillness in her posture that did something to him, something primal and wrong. He cleared his throat.
I don't like you.
"Good," she murmured without looking up. "That'll make this easier." But it didn't, because the days turned to weeks, and the space between them narrowed. Not in steps or words, but in temperature. The air grew thicker with each shared silence. They moved like adversaries, but stared like lovers. Each accidental brush of skin sent sparks that neither acknowledged aloud. Every insult was half truth, half warning. Inside their heads, the storm brewed. He's reckless, untamed, a creature bred for destruction. And yet, when he looks at me that way, I forget centuries of instinct.
She's a leech. A cold, elegant predator who should terrify me. And yet, this place doesn't feel like a tomb when she's in the room.
Still, they said nothing, could say nothing. Words might shatter the delicate tension between them, or worse, reveal truths neither dared face. One evening, rain whispered at the windows. Twilight bled into the room like smoke. The fire in the hearth crackled weakly, casting dim light across books that hadn't been touched in decades. Caroline stood at the tall window, tracing raindrops with her fingertip, lost in a storm she couldn't outrun. Behind her, Marcus paced. He was fully healed now, his strength returned, his limbs taut with restlessness. But the closer he came to the door, the further something inside him pulled back. He broke the silence.
I've been gone too long. The pack will be searching for me. The full moon's nearly here.
She didn't turn. They'll come for you.
No, you will be the one they will be coming for, actually.
That earned him a glance, just one, over her shoulder. Let them try. I'm fast. faster than they remember. He moved closer. The air around her felt colder the nearer he got. Or maybe it was just nerves.
You don't understand. They'll think you've bewitched me, that I've betrayed them.
And have you? His jaw clenched.
I don't know. Maybe.
She turned then, arms folded tight, not out of anger but defense. Then go. Run back to them. Let them punish you for kindness.
That's not what I want.
What do you want, Marcus? Her voice was sharper now, but beneath it was something rawer, something that trembled. To keep pretending this isn't happening, that we don't feel. She stopped, bit her lip. He stepped closer, lowering his voice.
Say it.
No.
Coward.
Her eyes flared. And you've had one foot out the door since you could stand. Why haven't you left? They were close now. Too close. The space between them buzzed like an open wound. Fear and longing twisted together like smoke.
I'm terrified.
He said finally.
Not of your fangs. Not of your kind. Of this. Of wanting something I was raised to hate. Something I'm not meant to have.
Something I'm not meant to have, she whispered. You think I'm not afraid too? He reached for her, slow and unsure, like approaching a sleeping predator. When their fingers touched, a current passed between them, sharp and warm, impossible to ignore. I hate that I want this, she murmured. I hate that I want you. He leaned in, close enough to feel her breath.
Then tell me to go.
She said nothing. The silence cracked as the storm broke above them, thunder shattering the moment. Caroline turned away, eyes burning, fists clenched.
I can't stay.
Marcus said, barely above a whisper, but there was no conviction in it. She turned back, her voice trembling. Then don't. I'm not stopping you. The door's open. Your life is yours. He frowned.
What?
I want you to stay, she said, every word aching. But only if you stay. For me. He froze. She never begged, never asked. But this wasn't a plea. It was a confession. Honest. Frightening. He stepped closer. She didn't retreat.
You're impossible.
He murmured, brushing his knuckles against her cheek.
A cold, immortal, stubborn creature who should have left me to rot.
And you're a snarling, reckless beast with no sense of consequence, she replied, eyes shining with something between fury and hope.
And yet.
She didn't let him finish. She surged forward, fists gripping his shirt, and kissed him like she had nothing left to lose. He caught her, arms wrapping tight, and kissed her back with the desperation of a man clinging to the only thing that still made sense. The storm howled. The rain battered the glass. But inside the manor, none of it mattered. There was only them now, the fang and the claw, the blood and the curse. And in the cradle of an ancient house that had long since forgotten warmth, two enemies held each other like it was the only thing keeping them alive. They had survived wars, centuries, betrayal. But this storm, was theirs.
This was Teeth and Claw by Beryl Coops. I hope you enjoyed my short story. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be informed of the next story we release here. We will be releasing a new short story weekly. And if you enjoyed Teeth and Claw, please hit that thumbs up button. Until next time, thank you for listening to the end.